Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force Podcast. My name is Rachel Paskman, and I am your host. And today I'm so excited that I get to be joined by Randi Roberts. And Randi is going to talk to us all about career change and the power of connection and what happens when your career no longer fits you and how to navigate a meaningful career change, which I think, given the new year, given everything that's going on like in our world, this is going to be a really poignant topic for so many of us to hear, including myself. So thank you so much for being here, Randi. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. I'm excited about our conversation.
So can you just tell the listeners, like, highlight your experience and like where you are now and what you've been doing?
Sure, absolutely. My first career was in pharmaceuticals. So I did that for about 30 years. I started as a sales rep and worked my way up to mostly through sales and marketing roles, and then worked my way up to running big business units in the US market for some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies. And I loved it. I mean, the mix of healthcare and business was really stimulating to me. The knowing that the work we did made a difference, like I'm all about doing some good while I'm doing well. And I really felt like pharmaceuticals was a place to do that. So I was kind of one of those crazy people that jumped out of bed every morning before the alarm, like couldn't wait to get on the road and get to work. And then it felt like all of a sudden that changed. And I wasn't I wasn't as sparked as I was. The stuff that used to energize me, like at the end of a crazy, busy, wild day, you can either feel like juiced up and excited about what you've done or exhausted. I went from the juiced up feeling to the exhausted feeling. That the same work was impacting me differently. And I really had to think about what did that mean for me? And what I came to through that transition process, which had twists and turns, was it was time for me to leave the corporate world and start my own business. And so for the last 7 years, I've run my own executive coaching business, working with a lot of folks going through the similar experience to what I did. I get to work with folks that have achieved a lot and know they have more they want to do. And I love my second career every bit as much as I loved my first career. It fits so well at this point in my life.
I love that. And I mean, you've had a really successful career there and you're having a successful career now. How do you define success when you're working with clients? Like when people come to you and they're like, I think I've made it. Maybe I should go to something else, or maybe I haven't. I'm not sure. I'm in that like limbo area of like above mid manager, but below C-suite in that like unknown limbo. How do you define that for them?
Yeah. It's a good question because for those of us, especially those of us in the business world, like metrics matter, right? We measure ourselves against something. So it's important to get clear on what that thing is. And so, I always think that one of the best places to start is to figure out, like, to take inventory of what's going on today so that you know what's working, you know what's not working, and you know to fix for the right problem. Because if we're looking to measure success, like, this is not as easy as looking at a P&L. This is defined by us. Success looks different for everybody. And so I think it's really important to get clear on what it is you're looking to achieve. It's not, if we're not clear on that, it might be, a lot of us get calls from recruiters all the time, or people contact us about jobs, and you think, wow, that sounds great, and there's more money, or whatever that thing that turns our head is, and that may be the answer. But it may not. You may take the same issue with you. So it's really important to get to the bottom of what will success look like for you personally, because it looks different for everybody. Some people can make some changes right where they are and not leave. Other people need to make a major change. So it's very personal.
I mean, it 100% is. I mean, and your job is such a big portion of your life. Like we spend most of our time at work and most of our time with our colleagues during the week, that it's mind-blowing when you really get down to think about it. And so what kind of questions does someone ask themselves, like when they're feeling stuck or unmotivated? What should we be doing, like the internal work?
Yeah, I love that question because it really does have to start with the internal work. And it's funny because when I came from, the business world I'm still in the business world. I run my own business, but I'm in much different space. The deep work I do with my clients, I didn't expect to spend so much time on the inner work. I thought you take on a project, you set your goals, you move forward, you do that. But it really does have to start with the inner work. We have to take inventory of what successes have we had? What have we made happen in the world? What do we feel best about having accomplished in the world? So it's kind of a mix of like, what are the skills I have? What jobs have I done? But really, what have I accomplished? What difference have I made? And take a look at, I'm very big on paying attention to our reactions to things. What gives you energy? What gets you excited? What do you really feel good about? Pay attention to those things because once you get to the bottom of what that is, you need to recreate that. Like, what that feels like. You deserve to feel that way again. So you have to understand what creates that environment for you. Likewise, you got to do the inner work to get clear on what's working. Sometimes we can be in a great situation and one variable can change and it can feel very different. And like in the corporate world, there's reorganizations. Our boss gets
Mhm.
promoted and somebody else comes in. Yeah, you know it. One little variable that may be totally out of our control can change and everything changes. So if you're not clear on what that is, like in the example I just gave, your boss leaves and the dynamic changes, and it might even be temporary, like new formation dynamic, it might get better. But if that feels different, someone who's trying to attract you to their company, who's flattering to you and saying all the right things, may turn your head in a way that feels really good. It's like that the sugar rush. Well,
Yeah.
that wears off.
Yeah. When you're like, oh, I'm wanted. I'm wanted.
Exactly. We all want to feel
Yeah,
that
we
way.
all want to feel like that. And I
Yeah.
feel like, I mean, this is so poignant for me. I feel like this conversation comes at such a good time.
Excellent.
Because I just wonder, like, I do not deal well with corporate change. And it took me a long time into my career to realize that, where I'm
Sure.
like, I had this oomph of, I want to do all these things and this drive. And then COVID happened. And then the mass layoffs happened. And I feel like we're all in a place, not all of us, but the majority of people are in a place where it's just like, I'm like, I don't need promoted. I'm good. I just want to have a job. And there's no more career direction. There's no more drive to like reach the next new thing or do something different. You want to like stay in your lane and stay and do your own thing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like with all of these changes that company values are affecting the individual employee, and how is that working?
Well, I think it's an important question because I think I think COVID is one dynamic, the whole shared experience we had that was so unimaginable. But I also think that folks that are in that are newer out of school and newer in their careers are smarter than I was when I started. I take a look at my daughter's generation. I think people are smarter now in terms of your question about values and what the company values are and making sure that you're aligned to that and you feel good about the mission of that company. Like I mentioned that when I was in pharmaceuticals, I knew that we were doing good for patients. Like that was really important for me.
Yeah.
Other people get really motivated by knowing that they're doing well for shareholders. That's really important to them. So, how you satisfy that will look very different. But for most of us, we need something bigger to hang on to. But I think that one of the underlying points that you're making is around our personal level of risk tolerance and what we need for security. And that is real. Like there are times when people will come to me and they're having that, they're less satisfied than they used to be, or they're just, not fired up about their work anymore. And when you break it down, like there may be financial reasons why they really should stay where they are. That is absolutely real. At different phases in your life, you got a mortgage, you got kids to put through school, whatever those things look like. You have your own student debt to pay off. There are times when we are more or less comfortable with risk, and that's another important thing to know about yourself. And something I didn't expect was I always thought, oh, you could take risks early in your career. You got nothing to lose. It's all in front of you. Absolutely true. If you're a person comfortable with risk, not everybody is. Then you kind of go through a phase in this is a bell-shaped curve. So this is most people. You go through this phase where you have more demands on you, and it might be the mortgage and providing benefits and those things. And then if you're lucky enough to get to a certain point of success, you get to a point where you can take risks again.
Yeah.
Like me. I mean, I jumped off the corporate ship at my peak earning years and started my own business. And there, I was very purposeful. I'm not on personal level. I'm not hugely comfortable with risk. And
Yeah.
I took a huge risk, but it was very measured. Like I had done the background work, I had done the math, and I knew what I needed financially and otherwise, and had a real specific plan for it. And I'm lucky it really worked out. But who knows what conversation we would be having if it hadn't.
No, 1,000%. And I think weighing it to risk makes sense. It makes so much more sense. Like, I'm like, I don't like corporate change. No, I'm not a risk taker. I know that. I don't gamble. My financial advisor will always be like, let's, and I'm like, nope, nope, S&Ps. Nope, we're not doing any of that.
Yep.
I'm not fun at all in that kind of sense. No risk. So that makes sense that like risk, your personal experience and your personal bandwidth of what kind of risk you want to take would make sense for how you want to do a career change. Do you think that risk is the biggest reason that people resist making a career change, even if they know that it's necessary?
Um, Risk is definitely one of the biggest reasons, but risk means different things to different people. Like financial risk is one thing, and your absolute security. People who are in a two-income family where somebody's got the really solid job, somebody else can take a flyer at that point, and maybe sometimes those things change. So there's financial risk for sure, but there's also that the less tangible aspects of risk in how much do we believe in ourselves? How much do we trust the situation? How comfortable are we doing something we've never done before? Because some people are like, I may be in a position where I really believe I have the skills, I have the experience, I know I can be successful there. But maybe I'm somebody that doesn't flourish in a situation I've never done before.
Yeah.
And, by nature, you don't know how to do it. You got to figure it out. If you're somebody that can tap into the motivation of that, the growth opportunity in that, that can be the best thing of all. Because one of the things that I think we don't appreciate, like I'm very passionate about, we got to get out of our comfort zone to grow.
Yeah.
There's a time to be in your comfort zone. But if you're sticking around too long in your comfort zone and you're getting a little bit bored and you need that challenge, not taking that risk could be a risk.
Oh, a
So
thousand
it's
percent.
getting a little bit meta here, um,
No, but
but I really think that's true.
there's all these different things that are coming at you. So let's say that I've made the decision. I'm like, okay, I've weighed the risk. I'm gonna switch careers. I'm gonna leave this job that I've had for 11 years and I'm gonna go into something different. What is the first steps that someone can take to explore something that's more fulfilling to them at that point?
Yeah, I love that question. I think the place that I would start, that I often start with clients, is taking inventory of all the things you've done, of all the things you love, of the best boss you've ever worked with, the situation where you've been most excited about your work, and sort of breaking down what are all the things that created that environment for you within yourself, but also the world around you, and thinking about all that. Some of that information is not going to be relevant, but some of it is going to spark stuff for you on the plus side, but then also what's working for you and what isn't. And I actually have a tool that I can offer to people that can sort of give them a start. If it's basically because I do this work so often with clients, I just developed, it's called a career satisfaction assessment. It's available free on my website. And it basically gives you a place to start of assessing how you rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on 8 different big pillars of career fulfillment. it can give you a place to start with. Wait a minute, this is working really well. Why? What do I need to look for in the next place? What do I need to take with me? Or this is the real problem. There might be two areas that pop up. Oh, this is what's missing.
Yeah.
Maybe once you've identified it, you can fix it right where you are. If you're someone who you need to be attached to a larger mission. You need to know that your work makes a difference in the world. But security is a real issue for you right now. So changing jobs is a bad idea. Maybe community service can build it in.
Hmm.
Like there are different things to look at once you know what you're trying to solve for.
Do you have any tips? And I think especially for women, when they decide that they're going to make the switch and they're going to go to a new company to kind of have that confidence to do so. I feel like we're already so bogged down with imposter syndrome. Like I'm a capital P professional. I'm on multiple boards. I work in major tech. Like I know what I'm doing. Does not mean that every day that I don't look at an email when I write it and I'm like, should I put that? Should I be doing that? Should I write it like that? Maybe I should be a little tougher on that. Oh, oh, nope, exclamation point, exclamation point.
Mhm.
How do you help and give like tips for women that are then now going into a new company or a new career?
Yeah, this is a conversation I have all the time. And I think, you mentioned imposter syndrome. I think it's a generalization, but many people, but many women in particular, one of our greatest skills is convincing ourselves why we can't do something
Yes.
or helping others to understand what our areas for development are. Like, let's stop doing that. Let's take a look at all the reasons why someone wants to talk to us about these things. We can think about describing ourselves to someone else. Pretend, like, do a trick with yourself. Pretend you're talking about somebody that you've worked with before that you really believe in, that you would advocate for because you know what they can deliver. Talk about yourself the way you would talk about them. Like, help people to see the things you can do. Quiet that little gremlin voice that holds us back and get out of your own way. Here's another trick, and I hesitate to even talk about it because it feels somehow anti-feminist or something like that. But sometimes I think about, if I'm in the situation of overthinking an email or overthinking a discussion, planning for it is one thing, but even I walked out, I should have said this, I should have said that. Like,
Yes.
get over yourself.
Mhm.
How do you want to do it going forward? But then think about it like, how would a man handle this?
Yes, I would.
Because the truth is, like I said, I don't really like to admit it, but I think there is in general a difference, or there at least is a difference in our minds. And sometimes looking at it through that filter can help us to consider a different approach.
I mean, one of my favorite posters on my wall is carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man because they just have the best confidence. And I'm like, a
Yeah.
man wouldn't even be fretting about, they wouldn't even be thinking about this. They just be like, up, 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 and they're done, send the email.
Yeah.
And I'm over here being like, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
I should have said,
completely. I mean, I can share a little bit of my own experience that I went through. Look, in the corporate world, I was very successful. I got to a certain point. I had hundreds of people reporting to me, could easily have been convinced of my own importance. Then I go into a world through some twists and turns. I go into a world where I'm running my own business, right? And I held myself back so much putting anything out there in the world on social media, on email, any kind of communications, because I kept thinking it has to be perfect. No, it has to be perfect. And so as a result, I wasn't doing anything. How could I help people if I wasn't allowing myself to get out of, my own head? And I worked with my own coach on it. And this one thing I would say is get some support from a friend, a colleague, a coach, whoever. And my own coach helped me to redefine how I saw myself as rather than someone who had to put out things once they were, had to be perfect before I could do it. I'm somebody that's really good at fixing things that aren't quite perfect,
it's awesome.
at solving problems when they come up, that kind of thing. And once I gave myself permission to not be perfect, it unlocked a lot of things that's resulted for me in a whole lot of career success, business success, and helping a lot of other people.
And I think that's so poignant. And you said like having these friends or having, somebody, a career coach, somebody to talk to. How do you build a network that helps you navigate a career transition?
Yeah, oh boy, network is everything right now. And on a couple of different levels, the way you're asking the question. There's the network, the way we often think of it, which is who knows who has an opportunity, that kind of thing. That's very, very important. But I think there's another network that you're getting at too, which is who's my inner circle, if you will, that the people that I really trust. And I don't think you need a huge number of them, but there's a small group of folks that you can share the thoughts that you don't necessarily want the whole world to hear. I'm doubting this or that. I'm not entirely sure. I talk to people a lot when they've taken on I love working with executives when they take on new levels of responsibility because you need a lot of support then because you have a lot of moments where you think, I don't know what to do.
Oh,
And
there's
oftentimes there's expletives in that thought, but I'll leave them off for the sake of your listeners. But I don't know what to do. Who do I call? So you have to have a few people that you can acknowledge. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do here. Can I talk through my options? Or I'm feeling really stuck. What should I be thinking about? So you keep that group small, but acknowledge that everyone feels that way at times. We tend to feel very alone, which is why we don't reach out. But in my experience, everyone feels that way at times. The people that are most successful, I think, they're the ones that figure out how to cope with it and work with it and use it maybe even as motivation to be better.
Oh my God, I love that. And for like the motivation, do you feel like sometimes people who feel awkward or hesitant about networking, it really is a practice thing that like that's what they should be doing more of? Or is there are there different things that they should be doing besides just practicing in the mirror and doing doing your superwoman pose and all of that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that you asked about that because this is one area where I think with networking, we get in our own way. This is another one of those, gremlin moments or we our inner critic, whatever you want to call it. We hold ourselves back thinking things like, oh, I haven't talked to them in 5 years. They're not going to want to hear from me. They're going to think I need something. Like we say all these things to
Yes.
ourselves. I guarantee you, Rachel, if this happens to me all the time, people I haven't talked to for 10 years will call me. They see my stuff out there and they have a question or whatever. I am, I can't think of a time I wasn't thrilled to hear from them. And not because it's my business, but because from a personal standpoint, I love having that energy out there of helping people and paying it forward. And so if we think about how would we feel if someone who we haven't heard from in 5 years calls us, even if they are asking for a favor, we would like to be able to help them. Like it feels good to help people. So sometimes we need to give other people the opportunity to help us. And what is the worst thing that can happen? If you call someone asking for, do you have a connection at that company maybe? Or I have these thoughts. Can we bounce some ideas around? What's the worst thing that can happen? They don't get back to you or they're not thrilled
They
to hear
don't.
from
That's
you.
what I say about everything. We're like, what's the worst they say? No. They say no. So what do
We
you want?
can survive that. That's okay.
The worst they can say is, no, we don't have the money. But you ask, and like they're not going to fire you over asking for it.
Nope.
Like, number one, that's illegal. Number two, that's just bad form and rude. So, like, it's not going to
And
happen.
most people are not those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want to
I,
be polite. Most people also don't want to. I feel like when you do it, they then look at like the position you're in and be like, what if I was in that position? Like,
exactly.
then like
Exactly.
I can always call in that favor later. They might know somebody from this so and so and connect. Like,
Yeah. Exactly. So many times it is that mutually beneficial. Sometimes it's just people like to help people, sort of that pay it forward, corporate karma kind of mentality. Whatever it is, the barrier between us and making that step is us. Like it's in our own head. The good news about that is once you figure it out, you can get yourself out of your own way. But it's remarkable to me how much we get in our own way, especially women.
yeah,
We want to be 100% qualified for something before we take it on. Hey, if you're 100% qualified for something, you're going to be bored in 3 months.
yeah.
Take on something that you're 75% qualified for, and you can grow into the 25%. Like, take that on. You can do it.
Yeah, but they say women literally look at the requirements and we don't meet every single one of those requirements.
Yeah,
They're like, nope, can't, oh, I can do all of this, but this one type of software that I've never heard of, I've never used, you can learn.
exactly.
You can learn.
It's really important.
My best hires have always been the ones where I'm done with the call and I'm like, I like that person. I'm like, I would want to work with them. I'm like, I would rather work with somebody and teach them everything they need to know than work with somebody who has ego and it's like my way or the highway, or like is going to bring any kind of drama
Yeah.
or issues to the workplace. And I'm like, no, I'd rather just, I'm like, anybody, we got taught how to do this. This is not an innate thing that you just like know when you come into a job. I'm like, so if you have the time and the bandwidth and you can teach, pick the nice person that like you have to spend time with, like we said in the beginning of the call, you have to spend time with these people all the time you're working.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
you want to like the people you're around. So
Yeah.
just being nice and likable to begin with, I think is such a
It,
good
it
way in the door.
it makes a difference, and I used to discount it, but it does because so much of what we do is through influence. And if people like you and trust you, you will get more done for sure. I just think that let's go back to that qualifications piece and are we 100% qualified? Do you really want to work like there are different times for different situations, but if you're bringing somebody up who aspires to take on more and really add as much value as they can to your organization, do you want to take on somebody who's going to be plateaued the moment they step into the job? There's nothing new for them to learn. I want to take on somebody who's looking forward to the growth opportunity, that's thinking about it as a here's what's in this for you. Let's see what's in this for me, and make sure that they're really as driven as they can be and comfortable throwing them things into things that they don't always know. Those are the people that are going to help you and your organization grow.
No, 1,000%. And I think that when you're looking to take that career change, do you feel like you really need to take a look at yourself, like for a practical step where you're like, I'm going to do a whole new career path? Is it something you should be looking at from values? Is it, should you be like, but I kind of like to do this from like a side hustle or a hobby? Or how do you explore if you've been in one sec for so long, going into something completely different?
Yeah, it's great because I mean that's a big deal. And not only do you want to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons in the right way, but you need to be able to tell your story
Yeah.
because somebody's going to look to you. If you're starting your own business, it's one thing, you're kind of running your own show. But if you're going to a completely different career, say, and into another company or endeavor, you have to explain to people, you have to help them see why that drastic change makes sense, why they should recognize that you're going to be there long term or whatever their issues are. So you got to think about your own motivation and how you tell your story. And luckily, they stream together. But I think that values is a great place to start. And I didn't appreciate that when I first went into this work, executive coaching. I didn't think I was going to do a lot of values work with my clients. We almost always start right there because for them to take a pause and look inside and think about what are the things that are most important to them in their life and how well are they serving those things right now, where those gaps are, that can be very, very telling. And then you can figure out like the things that I say are most important to me, I got to protect those things. I got to make sure I'm showing up for those things. The areas where there are gaps, how can I fill the gaps?
Yeah.
Is it within my own job? You may be in a company that you like the mission, you feel good about the people, they're successful financially, whatever it is. Maybe you're not excited. If you need growth, like if you recognize that one of your values is growth and new things, you might be able to establish a new line of business within your company, a new product line, a new customer base, that kind of a thing. Once you figure out what you need, then you can figure out how do you fill it. It might be right where you are. It might be taking on something new. It might be going from corporate to nonprofit. Like, who knows? But if you don't know what you're solving for, you can't, if you don't know what you're solving for and you manage to solve it, you got lucky.
Do you feel
So
like the timeline for people?
I'm sorry. Oh, I have this client that
Go ahead.
says,
Mhm.
I have this client that says something I love, which is increase the surface area of your luck.
Okay,
Like do all the work to then be ready to catch the luck kind of thing. She might be quoting somebody else, so I don't want to
fine. We love it
misattribute
anyways.
that.
But
Yeah.
that leads into my question of, do you feel like there's a timeline of like how long you should stay in it before you're like, I now feel drained or just so unhappy? Or do you feel like it's when you start getting like the itch or like the worry? Or when do you think is like the time where you should be like, or should we always be looking?
Such a good question. I think one thing I will say is many people ignore that, what I call that itch, that feeling, and we wait too long. And then what can happen is our motivation has diminished. We're not necessarily in the best place to contribute where we are or in the best mindset to look for something new. So as soon as you start to feel that, like I use this example, people will say, well, how do I know when is the right time to talk to a coach? I'm like, if you're asking the question, talk to a coach. You don't have to invest in a big way, but explore it a little bit. Whatever that is, if you're having the thought, do something about it to explore whether it's the right thing for you. And one way to get ahead of that, if people believe in, for me personally, every 2 years, I work with my coach on a values assessment again. I've done it, 14 times. But I redo it from the standpoint, your core values don't change, but the way they represent themselves in your life and the priority you put on them does change over time. And so as you move into different phases of your life, like right now, I'm in my second career, I'm totally fired up, but I don't have a lot of financial risk. I've done very well. My daughter's just gotten married. I'm in the empty nest phase of life. My values and how the things that I put my time to are different now. So I check in on that about every 2 years to make sure I'm still kind of doing the best for myself. And so I think that's a great practice for people, similar to what we do in the corporate world of setting objectives every year and doing regular assessments. You can do your own regular personal assessment to make sure that you're still serving yourself and you're getting ahead of when that feeling may start. Because if you wait too long, you want to be able to make any changes on your own timing, right? You want to really be in the driver's seat of that. And if you wait too long and you find yourself unmotivated and sometimes even sort of a work depression, that doesn't put you in the best mindset for making decisions and making moves.
I feel like no matter what, all of this accumulates, it kind of comes down to like you have to be self-aware. If you're not self-aware from the beginning, how are you going to know
Yeah.
you need a change or what you really want? And I mean, being self-aware is so it's difficult. Like I mean, I've done a lot of therapy to like become self-aware and understand why I do the things I do, or like why my brain thinks the way that it does, or I make decisions the way that I do. And I think that's so poignant though, that like you have
Yeah.
to know yourself before you can even, before you do the change, before you do anything.
I am in complete agreement with you on that. The challenge sometimes with self-awareness is the people who really, take that on, you do, I do, tend to be a bit more self-aware and tend to put some mechanisms around ourselves to keep it close to it. We talk to other people. I told you I work with a coach. I have other colleagues and former bosses and things that I stay close to on that. A lot of times people who stay a little bit more isolated may think either they don't see the importance of it or they may think they're self-aware and they may not be. So I would say get outside your own head. It's funny, I've mentioned coaching a couple times. I have a bias. I am a coach. I used to really hold back on promoting coaching because it felt self-serving. But the reality is, I believe the work that I do and so many others do helps people. And if I don't talk about the benefit of that, I can't help people. So I don't hold back anymore. And I really feel like, I have this personal board of directors, and it's what I recommend for clients. You may have a coach, you may have a mentor, you may have advisors, you have a spouse, you have a trusted partner. All these people play different roles, but you got to get out of your own head and talk about it. Just even verbalizing things really unlock some things. And it's so low risk. Just try it. Most coaches will offer a free session just to get to know each other and see what coaching is about. Like it's like 45 minutes of your time. There's no money involved. Or just schedule take somebody coffee and talk about some of the things you're thinking about. It makes a difference.
I mean, it's just like therapy. I can recommend it so much, and I think it's helped me so much in my career and kind of to figure out what I want to do next or where I want to go next.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you wish you had when you were navigating your career change?
I wish I hadn't put so much pressure on myself to figure it all out on my own. because of what I mentioned of defining myself as someone who had the answers, who knew what to do, um, if I had reached out for help a little bit more, and I finally did start seeking out people who had done this before and figure out what they knew and then do it my own way, kind of thing. If I had asked for help sooner, I think I could have saved myself some angst. And it's amazing how that is true for work and for your personal life.
1,000%. Like you just somebody else out there has gone through it
Mhm.
before. I reinvent the wheel. Like
Yeah.
so my last big question for you is if you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be? You've had big career changes and a big career and big life. What would you tell your 16-year-old self?
Oh, my 16-year-old self went off to college and got into more social activities, we'll say, than school at the beginning. So I would say, so take some of that stuff more seriously. But I would, I think it would be around your own motivation rather than what others think you should do. You may get defined in a certain way, and this happens in a career also, as someone who can do these things. And sometimes, you know, I mean, I remember early on in my career, I had been my first promotion into a sales training job, and I wanted to get my MBA to open up the marketing world to me. And I remember a guy who I really respected from the company, saying to me, "You don't need an MBA for what you do." And I just looked at him and like instinctively said, "You and I obviously have different ideas of what I will do." That kind of thing. So just like trust your own instincts. That's what I would tell myself at 16. Trust your own instincts, follow what you love, and you'll put it together.
Love that. I mean, it's poignant for now too. So
It is.
right on point. So tell the listeners where they can find you, plug yourself, your resources, everything.
Thank you. So probably the best way to reach me all around is on my website, which is Randi, Roberts.com. There, you can contact me through that. It has connections to my own podcast, Fulfilling Career, Happy Life. In the resources section, it also has that career satisfaction assessment that I mentioned. So folks can reach me there, on YouTube, Fulfilling Career, Happy Life, or on LinkedIn is probably the best places to find me.
I love that. I hope everybody takes the chance to go check out Randi. This has been super helpful for me, and I know I'm going to be taking the assessment and seeing where I'm going to be going in the next phase of life here.
That's
Thanks
great.
so much, Randi, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you, Rachel, and thanks for the work you do. It's important.
thank you. All right, everybody, we will see you next week.